Hello and welcome to Security Scan. I am Vishal Dahiya, and this week we will take a look at the priorities for the new government as far as defense sector is concerned. Now, the BJP-led government has begun its second term after storming to power with a massive mandate in the recently concluded Lok Sabha polls. This week, we will talk about the priorities for the new government in the defense sector, with acquisition of new weapon platforms, modernization and reforms in armed forces being the focus areas. Several projects are at different stages for all three armed forces, which includes 6 new submarines and more than 50 fighter jets for Indian Navy, approximately 400 fighter jets for the Indian Air Force, 800 helicopters for Army, Navy and Air Force, and field artillery rationalization plan for the Army. Another focus area is reforms to right-size the Army, genuine integration and coordination between all three forces, and reforms in the defense production sector. For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests in the studio today. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with the Retired Major General Ravi Arora, defense expert. We also have with us Commodore Anil Jay Singh, the Vice President of Indian Maritime Foundation, and Air Commodore Prashant Dikshit, another expert as far as the Indian Air Force is concerned and other defense issues. Welcome all of you gentlemen to Rajya Sabha TV studios. Let me begin with you, General Arora, first, and let's look at all these three armed forces one by one. And if we start from the Army's perspective, there are several projects which are in the pipeline in terms of weapons acquisition and other aspects as well. So from Army's perspective, what would you identify as the key priority areas for the new government?
When you compare with the Air Force and the Navy, the Army requires special attention. I'll tell you why. Firstly, our Army, the Indian Army, is the second largest in the world. First is China, second is India, third is USA, and the fourth is North Korea. But on the Global Firepower Index, which is arrived at by considering 55 different entities, we are number 4. So we are fairly high, because this considers mainly the size of the forces, the finances involved, and the number of equipment, not necessarily the type of technology or how good they are. But when it comes to ranking by equipment, we rank 25th when you look at the armored fighting vehicles, which includes the infantry fighting vehicles too. And we rank 26th when you consider the other equipment, particularly the self-propelled artillery. These armored fighting vehicles and self-propelled artillery are considered to be the main firepower of the land forces. But the Air Force ranks 4th, and the Navy also ranks 4th in this. So Army being at 25th and 26th requires special priorities. Now, another reason why it requires special priorities is because India has been the second largest importer, and if you look at some different data, you may call it the 4th largest importer of arms, and we stand nowhere as far as exports go. So with a weak defense industrial base, much of our major equipment is imported. And let me just offhand recount for you. All our tanks are imported except the Arjun, of which we have 124. Our T-72 and T-90 is imported. T-72 already is kind of obsolete, it's undergoing upgrades. Our artillery guns, well, now we have started getting, but M777 ultralight howitzer and the Bofors gun is imported. Our infantry assault rifle, now the AK-203 is being produced in the country. Much of our air defense equipment is imported and obsolete, although we have now started getting some short-range surface-to-air missiles and medium-range surface-to-air missiles, and I'll come to that later. Our heavy mobility vehicles, logistic vehicles, the Tatra is assembled in India, but it's an imported equipment. So when you look at any other multi-barrel rocket launcher Smerch, those rockets and the system is imported.
So there is a lot of imported systems.
So despite our policy of achieving 70% indigenization, we have achieved 50%. There has not been much of transfer of technology. You can go on and on, but remember, this is a result of neglect over many years. And now we are saddled with this, and in the last 5 years, and because we are talking about the priorities of the new government, in the last 5 years, some traction has taken place. Some things are coming in, as I will come to later. Now let's look at, arm-wise in the army. What are the priorities? As far as the armored corps goes, or the mechanized forces, our T-72 tanks need replacement over 5 to 10 years.
Okay.
And so we started this procurement of the future infantry combat vehicle.
Okay.
This has been 10 years now, but not much progress has been made. We have just given approval for 464 T-90 tanks to be made, the advanced version. Well, hopefully this will bear fruit and we'll get better tanks. When it comes to IFVs, infantry fighting vehicles, the BMP-2, all of them, 2,600 of them need replacement, and that's why we are looking for, a new. When you come to air defense, I'm glad some movement has taken place as far in the air defense, what we call the VSHORAD, very short range air defense system. In that the Russian Igla-S has been selected, and we hope that it will come soon. BEL and DRDO are making the quick reaction surface to air missile.
Okay.
Some trials have already gone on, it's in the final stages. The medium range surface to air missile, Barak 8, is available, and so on.
Okay.
But Russian equipment or other equipment, Swedish equipment, L-70, Zu-23, Zu-23-4, Quadrat, OSA-AK, all are obsolete. For point and area defense, they require replacement.
So if you look at it that way, General Arora, there are quite a few areas, if you look at from Army's perspective, wherein, a lot of equipments need replacement. And as you're saying, that traction has started in the last 5 years. What I believe needs to be done right now is to build on that traction and achieve those targets which were set sight on just a few years ago. Let me bring in, Commodore Anil Singh on the Indian Navy's perspective. And that's going to be really interesting, really important as well, because this is one arm of the armed forces which is considered, moving ahead in terms of indigenization process or Make in India program.
Yes, firstly, the Navy's importance is increasing by the day. Because if you look at the new geopolitical construct of the Indo-Pacific, as its very name suggests, it has a very maritime orientation. And if India is seeking to play a larger role in this, and with the Prime Minister's last 5 years as foreign policy initiatives of engaging with the region, establishing strategic relationships with a lot of countries, he would need to be able to walk the talk with the right capacity at sea to deliver on this, on India's so-called preeminent status in the Indian Ocean region, for which you need a strong and powerful Navy. The Navy has always been at the lead as far as indigenization goes.
Okay.
However, still, there are a lot of areas where more effort is required. We generally classify indigenization under 3 heads. We call it the float, the move, and the fight element of a warship. The float is the construction of the hull to make a ship float. In that, we've achieved almost 90% indigenization because all the steel being used for ships is indigenous. Then we have the move element, which is the propulsion systems, the motors, the systems, the pumps, etc. In that also, a lot of industrialization has taken place. We've reached about 60%.
Okay.
But critical areas, we still don't have indigenous capability. Gas turbines, diesel engines. We've done pumps, we've done piping, we've done the lower end stuff. On the fight element, which is the armament, the sensors, the weapons, there we are only at about 30 to 35%. Now that is the area of concern, because after all, at the end of the day, we are building a ship to go fight a war and not sail at sea. So that area needs a lot of attention.
Okay.
I'm not sure the right kind of attention is being paid in terms of the effort is there, but I'm not sure delivering the results, because for whatever reasons, the right enabling environment has not been introduced, as a result of which there are more and more the deficits coming in capability in the Navy in certain critical areas. For example, the Minesweeper project.
Okay.
I think we've been debating Minesweepers now for almost 2 decades. But we still haven't come to a conclusion as to what Minesweeper are we going to get. The program has started, stopped, stalled, started, stopped. As a result, a country which has a coastal security threat of the magnitude of which we have, with a very hostile neighbor on our west, we do not have a Minesweeper today.
Okay, that's an important aspect as well. But Commodore Singh, if you look at some other weapon systems, and specifically if you look at the submarine projects, then there has been some headway which has been made in projects like that.
There has been headway, I agree, but Again, this is sort of catching up on what we've missed out for many, many years. So even today, when we have the new Scorpion submarines coming into the Navy, we are getting a new submarine after 19 years. After 2000, the next submarine was commissioned in December 2017. That means out of our force of 13 or 14 submarines at the moment, 12 are more than 25 years old. Now to bridge this gap will take time. I know stopgap arrangements are being made, they are undergoing modernization. But again, the project 75I, the next project, is nowhere on the horizon. It's moving at a snail's pace. It should get a lot more attention.
Okay.
The other thing is that, in the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of movement happening at the file level in Ministry of Defence.
Okay.
AONs are being given on a regular basis. How many of them are really getting translated into contracts? Where's the money? Our defence budget is only about 1.45% of the GDP. Our committed liabilities are huge. There is hardly any money to initiate new projects. The Navy is not even getting used, had reached almost 18% of the defence budget. It's almost down to, I think, 16 now. Whereas the Navy's aspirations to at least 20%. So there is a gap between what we want, what we think we should have, and what we're actually going to get.
Okay, so
and the larger the time gap slips, the more difficult it is going to be to catch up.
Okay, so important point here is that we need to move quickly and effectively to bridge those gaps when in terms of what we have and what we need and what we can do. Let me bring in Commodore Prashant Dixit here on the Indian Air Force's point of view, and that's a very, very critical element if we look at because as I was saying in my initial introductory remarks. There are almost a need of 400 fighter aircrafts in the long run, and we have had numerous discussions on this channel itself on how to go ahead and augment the combat strength of the Indian Air Force, which is very critical when we talk about the IAF.
Well said, Vishal. We have nothing in the horizon visible as to what is the time span for that. And there are projects which are utopian. I have said that last time in your presence, and where we talked about the AMCA, which is expected to come with 2025, which is our own creation, and also these 110 aircraft, of which we have no news so far, I must confess. And what the Commodore clearly mentioned, if you spend 1.45% of the GDP, we will always be lagging behind till doomsayers. And what has happened is, we are not able to catch up with the new view which we ought to take in our process of prioritization.
Okay.
To illustrate, one of the lessons learned from Balakot is that we need more AWACS aircraft. Mind you, we have 5 of them, two AEWC and 3 AWACS, and 1 more is coming in, and I think we are working 4 more. The grand view is that when we are holding operations, 1 AWAC should be in the air all the time. I believe our neighbors had that, but we couldn't do it. So that is a learning process. Similar things happen to refuelers. I don't find any plans for refuelers. Mind you, our vision around the Air Force is centered around getting more of the combat aircraft. Therefore, from these 30-odd squadrons which we have today, we get across to 42, which is our larger plan to deal with 2 adversaries on 2 fronts. That is the view. And that is delayed. But I don't find any writing in the wall about refuelers, as I told you, about AWACS. And also, I don't find development of new transport aircraft. What happened to the MTA? Medium transport aircraft. Nothing is being said. Mind you, I personally feel with this limitation of money which is going to be, and I don't find that disappearing quickly, we'll have to do some serious thinking about what we should do first.
What you're saying, and that's important as well, because what you're pointing out here is that we will have to prioritize as to what to take up first, and do that in terms of the amount of resources we have. Almost the similar sentiment which is being expressed by all 3 of you gentlemen when we talk about all 3 armed forces. But let me come back to the Army and to General Narawa here. And on another important aspect as far as armed forces are concerned, reforms for the Indian Army. Another topic which has been talked about a lot, there have been reports which have been submitted which say that the Army should be right-sized to, increase the teeth-to-tail ratio. So that aspect in long term is also very important when we talk about armed forces.
Certainly very important. Look at the Chinese. When they studied the war in Kosovo and the Gulf War, they realized they are hopelessly out of tune with technology. They were relying more on numbers. They started reducing their armed forces. They started what is called informatized warfare, what we call as network-centric warfare. So they seriously went about reducing their army and slashed their numbers, but at the same time brought in high technology.
Okay.
Now, of course, they can do it easier because it's a kind of authoritarian rule. In India, it's not so. The army has drawn from 13 different studies carried out over the last 20 years. Many of the recommendations of those studies have not been implemented. So this year, on their own, they have initiated reforms. But remember, while these reforms are welcome, they are trying to save money, they are trying to bring in efficiency, they are trying to change their operational concepts through integrated battle groups and so on. But you can get better bang for the buck if you implement or have a national security strategy, which we don't have, that will crystallize for everybody what is the requirement. And your acquisition and procurement will become much more efficient. You will be much clearer about what you want.
And there will be much better
If you have
coordination
a-
between all three forces.
Yes, if you and for that you will require a CDS, which has been missing for long. Then there will be more accountability, more synergy, more responsibility. Then you will be able to synergize the requirement of the three forces. Right now, for example, everybody wants their own UAVs. There is commonality in the requirement. You know, there is also a requirement for bringing in experts in the Ministry of Defense, experts on the services side also, who deal with procurement. You need to streamline the defense procurement procedure. You need to digitize it. You need to keep it to timelines strictly. So these are the reforms. Unless they are carried out, individual service reforms are welcome. They must go ahead. They must identify and implement them. But you will get the best result if you tackle them for all services altogether.
Okay, so that there is a better coordination amongst all of them, and it saves resources as well. Commander Singh, very important point made by General Adwa here, that the target should be better integration between all the forces and better coordination, because that will save us not only resources, but will also put up a united front in terms of war or adverse situations as well.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. But I think while we should be looking at integrating the three services in many areas, I think more important right now, if you ask me, the top priority of this country, as General Arora brought out, is to have a national security strategy. You have to have a comprehensive, all-of-government approach to national security. It cannot be isolated to three defense forces, Ministry of Home Affairs looking after the central paramilitary forces, customs looking after something, and somebody else, state police is looking after their thing. It cannot be, you cannot look at security in these little stovepipes. Till we don't have that, and it is a shame that as a parliamentary democracy in 72 years, we have not produced a single white paper on defense. Even China produces a white paper on defense every 5 years. So this is, I think, the need of the hour. The second most important thing is, if you ask me, is we very often say the army is not doing this, or the Navy couldn't do that, or the Air Force. I'm sorry, the Ministry of Defense did not do it. The armed forces are not in the decision-making loop at all. They can only recommend. Ultimately, it's left to a civilian bureaucrat to decide what comes or what doesn't come, or how it comes or how long it takes.
Okay, so another aspect, better coordination between the armed forces and the Ministry of Defense.
Not coordination, the armed forces have to be an integrated part of the Ministry of Defense and part of the decision-making chain.
Decision-making process.
That is most important.
Commander Dixit, your views on this, on these two aspects. One is the reforms in terms of the way forces operate, and second is in terms of the policies which we have, as Commander Singh was pointing out, and General Arora was saying, national security policy.
Commander Singh made a terrific point about joining all institutions which are contributing. It's not merely the people in uniform, beyond. For intelligence systems, for example, we have 8 Cartosats and 2 RISATs in space. I want to know who examines this data and who puts it across, who's reaching out to whom. We don't have a system. Such a thing has to be created. I mean, am I to understand that we don't have a structure and in which experts of all domains sit together and disseminate? That is not happening.
Okay.
Now, I narrated 8 Cartosats, 2 RISATs. These are the finest systems covering whole of South Asia. They are not merely contributing to the requirements of the Army, Navy, Air Force. They are also contributing to the Home Ministry requirements of Naxals. But how is this data being sent out? We don't know.
So better coordination in
Mind
terms
you,
of.
Vishal, I truly don't want to know. We ought not to be talking about. But my endeavor is to point out that we have a great gap in this system. And I hope somebody sincerely is fulfilling.
General Arora, one more aspect, if we look at, in the recent past, when you're saying that, in last 5 years, some traction has happened, is, setting up of three different, cores. So one is the cyber area, one is space, the other is special ops. So that can be considered one step ahead in terms of, all this integration which we are talking about, or looking at specialized areas.
Certainly, the nature of warfare has changed, already changed. So it's a step in the right direction to have these reforms, not only getting new weapon systems and making up deficiencies and improving infrastructure, but bringing in the elements for network-centric warfare, for information warfare, for cyber warfare, for special forces and special operations, and Space Command, for which steps have been initiated, entirely welcome. Now, to get the best value out of, because the government is also always constrained between the requirement of the defense forces as far as money is concerned and money required for other national projects. There will always be this conflict. So one way is to increase what you get for the money you spend. Much of our money is being wasted because we are relying too much on the DPSUs and the ordnance factories. These 9 DPSUs and ordnance factories are meeting 40% of the requirement of the armed forces. But 90% of the orders which were placed on Indian industry went to these units rather than the private industry.
Okay.
Now, we all know that their costs are higher, their wastage is higher. They need to be corporatized, they need to be made much more efficient, maybe they need to be privatized to a certain extent, and perhaps more orders should be placed on the private sector.
Okay.
If you don't want to increase the defense expenditure and yet get better value out of it.
Okay, so you're indicating reforms in the defense production system as well.
Yes, reforms in defense production, reforms in defense research as well. Defense research also needs to be revamped.
Okay.
Private industry or private sector has not yet been involved in defense research. They need to be given incentives. They need to be given monetary help.
Okay.
The defense procurement procedure has been changed, it has been tweaked, it has been improved, but far more improvements are required so that bias against the private sector and towards the defense public sector is reduced.
Okay. Commodore Singh, your comments on that, both aspects, defense procurement procedure and the need for reforms there, and the specialized wings which have been of late created, going one step ahead when we talk about specialized areas or further integration between forces.
The three areas that we just spoke about, cyber, space and special ops, couldn't have come a moment too soon. They've been talked about for a long time. Contemporary armed forces of our size, of India's size, have already got these in place. So I think it's a very welcome step. Now we need to empower them and energize them to deliver on what they're supposed to do. We can't scrounge on them as far as funding goes, etc. So I think this is a very welcome step, because while military hardware per se is very important and quantity has its own quality, it is these force multipliers that make that final difference. A lot of people have a lot of hardware. How well you can use it is what makes a difference.
Okay.
So from that perspective, it's fantastic. It's a great step, and I think it needs to be nurtured and developed. For example, maritime domain awareness. The Navy has just set up an information center. Just the setting up of that information fusion center will give us this great maritime domain awareness over the whole area. We just heard that the French have positioned liaison officer there. Many other countries are positioning. So I think from that sort of posture, we are doing well.
Okay.
And we need to take it further. From a defense reforms procedure, I agree entirely with what General Arora is saying. There are a lot of inefficiencies in the system. Again, it's, we have not been able to incentivize the private sector enough to invest in it. The reason is very simple. If I am expected to invest a few 100 or 1,000 crore rupees to, let's say, develop a submarine or develop a system, and then you tell me I want only 4 systems, and for the next 4 I'm not sure I'll come back to you. I'm not going to put in 3,000 crores for that. And when I don't put it in as an Indian company, why would my foreign partner put in his money? So you have to create the right enabling environment.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean handhold the private sector. It doesn't mean that at all. It means give them the right kind of environment in which they are allowed to develop.
Okay.
After all, the Department of Defense Production is Department of Defense Production of India and not Department of Defense Production of DPSUs.
Okay.
So they have to look at it in an all India thing. The moment they create this competitive us versus them sort of attitude, which is so prevalent today, or that's the perception, our defense industry is not going to flourish.
Okay. So basically creating enabling environment to ensure that we can move ahead further on that. Concluding comments from you, Kamar Dixit, in terms of what will be the priority areas and what needs to be done in terms of focusing for the next 5 years for defense sector?
Vishal, reforms are not useful if they are not institutionalized. You have to put them into some kind of yardstick. I remember coastal security. The matter of coastal security are being spearheaded by Navy in conjunction with the Coast Guard and the Marine Police. They have done great work. I followed up on that. But till now, there are no orders as to how the system is to be run. Since the Navy is the senior service and the Coast Guard looks up to the Navy and the Marine Police have been, nurtured, and so they have going around all coastal areas trying to coach. But we have no orders in coastal security. Similarly, when we talk about the issue of Make in India,
Okay.
mind you, the Commodores pointed out we can best do is to put in money and resources, but then we have to have a system.
Okay. A quick and final word from you, General Arora, before we end this.
I think, since the topic is what agenda must the new government have in the coming years, this government has already drawn many lessons in the last 5 years while they rolled out defense reforms or defense functioning. So, based on what they have learned, I hope that they will improve the organization and functioning of the Defense Ministry, the Defense Research and Development Organization. They will improve the defense procurement procedure so that there are no more delays, that they will improve the efficiencies of the public sector, that is the ordnance factories and the defense PSUs, that they will give more incentive and draw the best out of the defense industry and equip the defense services in the best possible manner.
Okay, so clearly, as our panelists have pointed out, that a lot has been done of late, but there is a lot which needs to be done further in terms of building on our capabilities, prioritizing our needs, as well as trying to see what exactly can be done in the next 5 years. So there it is, agenda and the priorities, quite a lot of them for the new government and for the new defense minister as well. We'll keep on tracking them on our show here on Rajya Sabha Television. We'll come back next week. Till then, keep watching RSTV.